terror attack. Today, the police response was branded cowardly. Also on the programme, bird flu restrictions are lifted for Welsh farmers, but there's concern their hens could still be at risk from the virus. Plus,
join me in Ruthin for Pancake Day.
hello, I'm Andrea Byrne. Welcome to Wales at 6. A savage and senseless attack. That's how a judge described the brutal murders of a young couple on their way to work. Zoe Morgan and Lee Simmons were attacked outside the Matalan store in the centre of Cardiff last year. Today, their family said they were disappointed with the sentence given to Andrew Saunders. Our correspondent Rob Osborne has the story.
5:30 on a Wednesday morning in September, and Andrew Saunders is walking along Cardiff's Queen Street. He's carrying 2 knives and he intends to murder. 15 minutes later, he would brutally attack and kill a young couple outside the place where they worked. It happened here outside the Matalan store, and these were his victims, Zoe Morgan and her boyfriend Lee Simmons. Saunders had previously had a relationship with Zoe, but couldn't get over the fact she was now with Lee. So he planned revenge on them both. 8 days before the murder, he was seen buying 2 knives at a Cardiff supermarket. The judge told him that regardless of his emotional state on the day of the murders, that you took the lives of 2 people in a savage and senseless attack. After sentencing him to a minimum of 23 years, Andrew Saunders thanked the judge, and as he was led away, turned to the public gallery and quietly said, "I'm sorry." These murders were no spontaneous act. In the period before them, he'd been searching the internet on how to harm people with knives, even how to blow up a car. And on the day of the murders themselves, he searched for videos on motivation for killing and motivation for revenge. For Zoe and Lee's family, a minimum of 23 years in prison was not enough.
As a family, we'll never be able to express how we feel inside and the disappointment we feel at the leniency of the sentence that has been passed today. We are all totally heartbroken and will miss our beautiful, intelligent girls for the rest of our lives.
No sentence or punishment will ever compensate for the loss of Lee's life. Our family are bitterly disappointed with today's sentence. The whole family has been left devastated by this horrific and unprovoked crime.
Saunders penned suicide notes before the murders, saying how he struggled with life and was in mental pain daily. But his actions have led to incalculable daily suffering for the family and friends of Lee and Zoe. Well, we got a sense of that daily suffering in court when the victim impact statements were read out. For Zoe's family, they said they had now padlocked her bedroom door so that it would always be as she left it. And for Lee's family, they said that they could now no longer look at photos of him as a young boy because it was so upsetting. And one other thing we learned, we knew that Zoe and Lee worked at this store behind me. But on the day that they died, Lee wasn't due to be here. Instead, he chose to be here because he chose to escort Zoe to work for the start of her shift.
Rob in central Cardiff for us this evening. Thank you. An ITV Wales investigation into the Probation Service has uncovered concerns that part privatisation by the Westminster government could be putting the public at risk. Some staff told our current affairs programme, Abida Bedwar, they were worried about the way Working Links, the private company now monitoring low and medium risk offenders in Wales, is operating. It comes after concerns raised by the mother of a murdered teenager, a warning that Gwyn Loader's report contains graphic images of injuries.
Connor Marshall was murdered in a brutal and unprovoked attack by a known criminal. David Braddon was on probation when he killed 18-year-old Connor after binging on alcohol, Valium and cocaine. Tonight, we follow Connor's mother as she fights for justice for her son.
Emotionally, we've lost. Financially, we've lost. And, the biggest loss of all is obviously with Connor. And that's not something that I'm prepared to allow another family to suffer with.
But there are concerns recent changes to the probation system could be putting the public at risk. I've spoken with a number of staff employed by Working Links, the private company who monitor criminals like David Braddon, who are deemed to be low or medium risk offenders in Wales. They didn't want to be interviewed openly, but were eager to share their experiences. They were concerned the public could be at danger because they say staff are being rushed to complete risk assessments, have unmanageable workloads, and now only deal with some offenders over the phone.
It's a disaster waiting to happen. It's not an individual's fault, it's the system. This new operating system is unsafe.
Working Links refused to be interviewed, but said they are committed to reducing reoffending and at all times ensure they deliver a safe service. But staff aren't the only ones to raise concerns. Helen Davis from Denbighshire is an Assistant Chief Inspector with Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Probation. She's also concerned that there are deficiencies in the services offered by the private companies now operating part of the probation service.
We're finding, for example, that the work to help reduce the likelihood of reoffending and keep to a minimum the risk to the public isn't thorough enough as yet. We'd like to see more oversight from managers as well, so that attention can be given to that work.
The Westminster government is currently reviewing the performance of the private companies, which have been running part of the probation system for the past 2 years. They wouldn't comment on Connor Marshall's murder. In a statement, Working Links said that their deepest sympathies were with Connor Marshall's family following the abhorrent crime. They say their top priority is protecting the public, but that not all individuals desist from further offences. The company also say the management of Braddon's case hasn't been connected to the crime, and that Connor's murder could not have been predicted or prevented. But Nadine Marshall is now applying to the coroner for a full inquest to her son's death, and wants accountability from the company and the government. Gwyn Loader, ITV News.
And you can see the full story in tonight's Abid al-Bedwa. That's at 9:30 on S4C this evening, and it does have English subtitles for you. A coroner has today described the police reaction to the Tunisia terror attack as shambolic and at worst cowardly. Trudy Jones from Blackwood was killed along with 29 other British tourists back in 2015 in June. In all, Seferdine Rezgui killed 38 people in the attack in Sousse. Megan Boot reports.
When you see it and hear it like this, it's hard to imagine anything different. But this is June 2015. Somewhere out there is a terrorist, killing 38 people. One of the victims was 51-year-old Trudy Jones from Blackwood. Today, a coroner ruled she, along with 29 other British tourists, were unlawfully killed, saying, "The simple but tragic truth in this case is that a gunman armed with a gun and grenades went to that hotel intending to kill as many tourists as he could," adding, "The response by the police was at best shambolic, at worst cowardly." But the coroner rejected calls from some families to rule that neglect by the travel firm TUI or the hotel owners played a role in the deaths.
On behalf of our clients who lost members of their family and those who suffered injuries in this terrible incident, we will now be preparing to commence civil proceedings against TUI. The inquests were about those who tragically lost their lives. They must never be forgotten, and their families hope that no one else will ever have to suffer the same fate in the future.
The tour operator TUI say since the attack they've taken steps to raise awareness of FCO travel advice and that their heartfelt condolences remain with the friends and families of those so tragically affected. The sound may have gone. The impact hasn't. Megan Boot, ITV News.
Some news just coming in this evening. Police say a woman is in hospital after a serious assault which took place in Mumbles in Swansea. It happened at around 3:15 at a house in Castle Avenue. South Wales Police say someone has been arrested and that they are currently assisting police with their inquiries. Officers are also urging any witnesses to come forward. Prisoners begin arriving this week at HMP Berwyn in Wrexham. It's brand new and will become Britain's largest prison. It's cost £212 million in total to build. It'll have enough beds for more than 2,000 prisoners and will employ 1,000 people, mostly from the local area. Well, our reporter Ian Lang's there for us tonight. This is a big deal then for the local area, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. The point is, this is now the biggest jail in Britain. It's one of the biggest jails in Europe. That means jobs, it means money in the local economy. And of course, some people are not very happy. Inside Britain's biggest and newest prison. Today, the media were given a tour of this massive jail building project on a site that just 4 years ago was scrubland. It has the latest high-tech security together with some more traditional techniques. It is now very much the government's flagship jail. Today, HMP Berwyn opens its doors for the very first time. This is a new jail with some very new ideas. Here, the cells are referred to as rooms with their own showers. It's all strictly controlled, but the rooms have phones so they can be daily contact with family. They're small but appear comfortable.
And academic evidence quite clearly says that you change behaviour through reward rather than punishment. But we should never shy away from the fact that men are here for a punishment and they've been taken away from their communities to protect the public. Our job when they're here is to try and prevent future victims. And the way I think we prevent future victims is by making sure when they're here, they're well educated, they've got a good chance of getting good quality vocational training, and they've got real work opportunities while they're in custody.
For those who have managed to get work here, it's a future. Luke Gardner is from Llangollen.
Especially, there's a lot of local people who've got the job and are ready to start now, and it's just, I can't see it being anything more than a benefit for our local economy especially.
But not everyone's happy. For those living on the doorstep, there's deep unhappiness.
It's a depressing thing that when you look out of your window, you're looking at a place of correction across the road. And I mean a huge place.
Before I speak to several people, and there are people who want to sell the houses, who want to move, and they're in a dilemma.
It's early days for the UK's biggest jail, but people will be watching very closely to see if it lives up to some high expectations. Now, what you have to remember is what they're doing here is something very new indeed. It's not so much about punishing, but nurturing, also almost rebuilding these people. It is a major experiment, and it started here today.
Ian Lang, thank you. OK, do stay with us. Plenty more still to come on the programme. Ruth is here.
Hello there. Yes, well, we get set to say goodbye to winter, the season that is, unfortunately not the weather. It's cold and it's a somewhat soggy start to spring tomorrow. Details on the way.
Doesn't sound great, does it? Also to come, flip, flip, hooray! Yes, it's Pancake Day, of course, and thousands of you in Wales have been honouring Shrove Tuesday traditions. First, though, an M4 relief road around Newport is expected to ease congestion for thousands of commuters who pass through it every day. But the project is not without its controversies and opposition. Today, a major public inquiry open to discuss the options. The Welsh Government's preferred route is this, which cuts through the Newport wetlands, and environmental campaigners are against it. Well, our business correspondent Carol Green is by the M4 for us this evening. Carol, this is something businesses are in favour of.
Andrea, well, big businesses generally are in favour. They say sitting in congestion every morning and every evening here is costing them money. 2/3 of all Welsh exports head out along this route, and the CBI has described this congestion as industrial and economic self-harm. Smaller companies, though, and firms are not all convinced spending £1.1 billion on one road in one part of Wales is the solution. The inquiry will consider those economic arguments, but also the social and environmental impact of any new route. But one haulier, just a stone's throw from the inquiry, told me today that this congestion adds 10% to his business costs every year and that a new route is long overdue.
We have to have progress. The road infrastructure in Wales has fallen behind and it needs to start to catch up, and this will be a good start to that. We won't get your goods to the shops to do your shopping if we don't have a modern transport infrastructure, and this will help to provide that.
Do you think you'll get it?
We are very hopeful.
Well, they're hopeful, but Carol, as I mentioned earlier, there is also a lot of opposition to this route.
There certainly was. Over 100 people, campaigners, turned out this morning to make their feelings heard. Environmentalists, representatives from the Wildlife Trust, the RSPB and Friends of the Earth. They say that a new route basically is a 1960s solution to a 21st century problem, and they want to see the emphasis shifted onto public transport, not a new motorway.
There are alternatives to this that have really not been explored, and it's an iconic landscape.
It's a matter for the whole of Wales, because if we want to make Wales a place to do business, a resilient place and a place that businesses want to do well and invest, we need to address the whole of the problem, and the M4, 19 miles of tarmac, will not solve that.
This motorway opened in 1967. Critics say it's no longer up to the job. Over the next 5 months, it's now the inquiry's job to hear the evidence and make its recommendations. Meanwhile, the Welsh Government would like to see construction start on a new motorway next year and it opening in 2021.
Carol in Newport for us this evening, thank you. Now, before Christmas, you'll remember there were several outbreaks of bird flu, which meant tough restrictions on how hens across Wales could be kept. Well, good news tonight. If you keep chickens, those restrictions have been lifted, but there are still some rules in place. Tom Brownlow has been to meet a free-range chicken farmer in Haverfordwest to find out more.
Usually found roaming free on the farm for the last 3 months, Claire Morgan's chickens have been forced to stay inside.
As of the 7th of December in Wales, there was the housing order put in place, so all birds had to be housed. That has been the case now for the last 12 weeks. In the sheds, the difference to our hens means that because they can no longer go out, we've had to put extra toys, for want of a better word, into distractions for the hens, things such as hay bales, milk carton containers, CD discs, anything like that, just as a distraction for something for the hens to play with. The one thing that you don't want is hens to become frustrated.
But from today, the rules in Wales have changed. Under the new All Wales Prevention Zone, birds are now allowed out, as long as they're kept completely separate from wild birds. Meanwhile, anyone with any kind of bird must also complete a biosecurity self-assessment form, which is available online. And Wales's top vet says it's crucial these guidelines are followed to protect the industry.
Anyone who owns poultry needs to do everything they can to protect them from infection, and the most likely source of infection is the wild bird population. So the risk, if they don't do something about that, is that we'll have a much bigger problem across the country.
With free-range eggs selling for up to 30% more, the fact her birds can go out is good news for Claire, but there's still uncertainty.
It's nice to get for hens to be able to go out again. It's a pity that we've got such a wet, windy day for their first day out after 12 weeks. Also apprehension, if I'm honest, because we are concerned that the disease is still in the, this virus is in the country still, and it means that, potentially they are at risk when they're out in the hen range.
The Welsh Government says the situation will be reassessed in April, when it's hoped Claire's chickens can enjoy the outdoors in a little more safety. Tom Brownlow, ITV News.
And you will need your eggs, of course, for this next story. There are a few days in the year when you can really indulge in sweet snacks free of guilt. Christmas Day, Easter Sunday and Pancake Day, which is, of course, today. And the residents of Ruthin held their annual Pancake Day race earlier on, so we sent none other, of course, than Rob Shelley to see how they got on.
Toss! A few towns have the odd pancake race. In Ruthin, it's more like the Pancake Olympics.
Last year it was
dry but very, very cold. The year before that it was pouring down with rain.
So the moral of this story is, let's have Lent when it's warmer.
It's absolutely right. It would be far, far easier.
Destiny comes when the clock strikes noon. Racing around the town square is almost like chariots of fire, but with more pancakes. Have you practiced? Some people are fueled by the spirit of competition. How many months have you been practicing?
Oh, not many. Only since Christmas.
Others were embracing their amateur status.
Are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, go. Oh, that's quite good.
I haven't actually had any practice, so could be
just
interesting.
go in cold, like your pancake.
Yeah, just go in cold, like the shop bought pancake and the shop bought pan.
All looking forward to a bit of fun? Are you all going to run very quickly?
It's true, I'm getting quite good at this.
There is only one rule. You obey all the rules.
If you don't toss that pancake
You're
3
disqualified.
times...
And toss it at a specific point by a traffic bollard, you are then disqualified.
We are in pancake hardball territory here, aren't we?
Indeed.
There are always going to be a few false starts.
Steady.
All right, more than a few.
Ready, steady.
And at least one of the pancakes involved was actually eaten.
You, young lady, you've eaten yours. Was it nice?
Yes.
As they say in Latin, ut spolia victor abire, to the victor go the spoils, whoever the victor actually is.
Who came first? Me. Who came second? That's me.
Rob Shelley, ITV News, Ruthy.
You see, Ruth, that is a little girl after my own heart. It's there to be eaten, isn't it? That's
Absolutely.
what I say.
Well, it's Pancake Day. It would be very rude not to. Now then, the question on the nation's lips today is, what's your favourite pancake filling? And I've decided to investigate for myself. So I have conducted, basically, an exhaustive survey of
and what
the
is
whole
that?
10 colleagues that didn't run away from me when I approached them with a clipboard. So much so, in fact, I went and, look at them, I accosted them with my camera just before we came on air. So here they are in all their glory. These are our gallery crew, the production staff, who are talking to us in our ears as we're on air. Look at their little faces. So my sort of exclusive results are in. Yeah. And of the 10 people who could be bothered to answer, quite frankly, here are the newsroom faves. We have 5 who prefer lemon and sugar. We have 2 who like chocolate spread. David, our boss, likes jam.
Yes, he's our programme editor. He likes jam.
I don't know if that's with seeds or without. I didn't go that far. Now, hang on a minute, because before we go on, there's 2 missing from there. So the ew goes to Tina McDowell, who likes savoury pancakes and her favourite filling is chili con carne. And the
Chili con carne?
Chili con carne. And the R goes to Mike, affectionately known as Spike, who says, it's been so long since I had a pancake, I can't remember.
Oh, that is,
So there we go.
Well, somebody will make him a pancake. And I've asked Lindsay, who's on cameras in the studio near, who's floor managing, who you can't see, and they both said lemon and sugar as well. But actually, Lindsay said she'd just like a double hit. She wants the savoury and the sweet. And just,
some people want everything, don't they?
2 courses, yeah.
Now then, I tell you what, it's probably time for us to talk about the weather. So spring, St David's Day, all starts tomorrow. Here are the details.
It's a snowy day on the slopes. Cardiff Airport and Flybe sponsor ITV Cymru Wales weather.
It's a somewhat mixed picture out there at the moment. We do have some dry spells, plenty of cloud in the skies, but we also have a fair scattering of squally showers, which will continue their journey southwards and eastwards as the night moves on. Easing back, though, towards the early hours, so the night will end on a dry theme, bits and pieces of cloud, and that means in terms of temperature, it isn't going to be quite as cold as it was last night. Still the possibility of a few flurries over the hills and mountains, and we could well see icy patches on the roads under any clear skies, but I think on the whole, it should be just a little bit milder than it was last night. Average temperatures 3 or 4 degrees around coastal areas, perhaps just hovering above the freezing mark further inland. So a chilly, sometimes frosty start then to spring tomorrow morning. Not a bad start to the day as we wake. Varying amounts of cloud with just the odd glimmer of sunshine from time to time. Make the most of it though, because no surprises. More wet weather waiting in the wings, this time pushing into the south and west and tracking northwards and eastwards. Again, some heavy downpours, particularly over the hills and mountains. But I think for the time being, we've said goodbye to the snowfall. Around coastal areas, though, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of some strengthening winds. We could obviously see the odd gale around exposed areas, so it's never going to feel too pleasant. Temperature-wise, though, well, really we're where we should be at this time of the year. Highs of 7 or 8, maybe squeezing a 9 or 10 in Celsius. Now, as far as the outlook is concerned, it's all a little bit hit and miss. It is unsettled, considering, as I said, we are at the start of spring. So here we go then. Showery bits and pieces of rain on Thursday, easing off a little bit by Friday, and then unsettled into the start of the weekend as well. But in terms of temperature, although it's not exactly tropical, we're not far off where we should be at this time of the year.
Cardiff Airport and Flybe sponsor ITV Cymru Wales weather.
So there you are, spring just around the corner, but
you
the
keep
weather...
saying this.
I know, I'm promising you, honestly. And can I just exclusively also reveal that I fall in the lemon and sugar brigade as well?
I do too.
Come on, your fact.
I do as well. Oh, my fact. My fact is that there's a chef in Australia who can flip a pancake 140 times in a minute. Record breaking. And that is it from us. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.